you. I guess the Avengers questions are kind of obligatory. This is the second time now that you're playing the God of Mischief under two very different men.
Yeah.
What is it like to have had, or what are the differences in the approach now between working with Kenneth Branagh as Loki and now working with Joss Whedon?
Good question. The thing about the two of them is that they actually share more than you might first imagine. Weirdly, Joss is a huge Shakespeare buff, and Ken's actually a closet comic book fanboy. True story. But also they both have a kind of pan-literacy about storytelling and mythology and literature and comics, and they understand classic tropes of storytelling, narrative arcs. You checking your cameras there?
Yeah. We're done. Sorry.
And they're also both just immensely passionate people, like really good at leading, really good at inspiring actors and all of that stuff. So I guess but everyone has a different artistic fingerprint, and of course whatever that is, whatever that fingerprint is, changes as you grow older anyway. And Ken has a very classical warmth about him, I think, and I think Thor is both warm and classical in tone, and Joss is really interested in comedy as well within a sci-fi context. So he had this huge, canvas where 8 superheroes are teaming up to save the world, and he's brave enough to make it funny.
But how did that affect your performance as Loki? Did he change at all?
Well, he changes in that he's definitively more menacing. A lot more. I think in Loki and Thor is a lost prince, and there's a degree of vulnerability and confusion about his identity. In the Avengers, he knows exactly who he is. He's fully self-possessed, and he's here with a particular mission.
Bouncing off that question, why does Loki need to take out his vengeance on Earth?
I don't think it's that like all delusional autocrats, he doesn't see it as vengeance. He sees it as a good thing. One of essentially, he's come down to Earth to subjugate it, to rule the human race as their king. And his primary argument is this planet is rife and populated by people who are constantly fighting each other. If they're all united together in their reverence of one king, there will be no war. I'm not sure he's right about that. But that's his reasoning. And
yes.
There's also a sort of the motivation for that is still. We have an interruption.
I think we have a conference.
There
we go.
It's Joss. What did you say?
I see everything.
Yes. But that's to bring Hemsworth into it. There's, I think, still a jealousy that Thor gets to have a kingdom, as in.
Oh my gosh! Yes. Sorry. Yes, you're on.
We're answering questions.
You're here. You're talking.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry.
Thor gets a kingdom. Thor gets Asgard, and Loki has nothing. So he's going to come and make his own kingdom.
Or as this bad guy, you're talking about the comedy that Joss Whedon likes. Do you get any comedy in that, or are you just all hellfire and brimstone?
A little bit of a lot of hellfire and brimstone. But also Joss had 2 notes for me. One was more feral, and the other was enjoy yourself. And I think there's a kind of relish that Loki takes in just being who he is that I hope the audience will enjoy as well.
Well, you have some really awesome physicality at the end of Thor, so are we going to see a little more of that in the Avengers as well?
Definitively.
And are you working alone, or do you maybe have some cronies?
There's a lot of working alone, and then there's a little bit of support as well. Yeah.
How do you handle taking on 8 superheroes with one bad guy?
It's all a day's work, man. Well, yeah, there's something about Loki that's been expanded. He's like, he is an enormously powerful being. He's the god of mischief, and he's between the end of Thor and the beginning of Avengers, he's evolved. It's as if he's been on his like 3 years worth of military training. Like he knows a few extra things, tricks up his sleeve. It's really fun. It was hugely physically demanding for me because there's a kind of lethal and yet sinewy strength that he has. That sometimes is a sort of about magic and a sort of supernatural power that he has, and other times a raw physicality, which is just me and my body, day in, day out.
Either before or during the shooting of the Avengers, did you and Chris kind of discuss what interactions you want to have, how you want to contrast it to what you're doing with the first movie, or did you kind of purposely try to kind of separate you yourself?
We sat down with Joss individually, and then we kind of talked about it together. But Joss had such good ideas, really. It was just sort of following his lead. Because it's not a sequel to the Thor film, it's a sequel to the Iron Man films and the Captain America films as well. And his idea was just so smart. But it's a huge compliment. I took it as a huge compliment that Joss thought that what I did in Thor was okay enough to warrant putting me in the next one. And I think Joss has a soft spot for Loki. I think he kind of likes him as a character, and thought he could take both Thor and Loki further down that path and make the sibling rivalry a really interesting element of the clash of egos in Avengers.
Just apologize. There was no like kind of amiable critiquing between you and Chris, like oh well, you played it this way or played it that, like in terms of how you guys interacted without Joss. In terms of was it more Joss kind of relationship?
Well, the thing is, I'm so blessed to have such a great relationship with Chris as an actor. But it's very, like, when I remember our first scene together in Avengers, Joss was like, "You really make each other better. That's a really amazing thing to watch." Because of we just bring some extra baggage that's good, because we've played brothers for so long, and it's not an intellectual thing. It's just like it's like when you play tennis with someone and you're just evenly matched. Yeah.
Loki traditionally doesn't have as cool of a signature weapon as some of the superheroes out there. So, what prop or weapon are you jealous of from the Avengers? And did you get to play with any of those?
Those Avengers are very protective of their props. There was one day where I managed to slightly mischievously steal Captain America's shield and Thor's hammer, and I was parading around a subterranean tunnel with the shield and the hammer. And one of the producers saw me and was like, "What are you doing with those?" Also because nobody can lift Thor's hammer, and I'm not particularly jealous of them, I wouldn't say. I've got quite a good one in these.
Well, also, you've got this team of superheroes, a super friend group, I guess. So who would be your evil super friends if you were to put together a team?
My evil super friends? What, from like Marvel? From
anywhere. Literature, Marvel, movies, put them together.
Your close friends?
My evil super friends. It's an amazing question. It's just going to take me some time. A little bit of help from Darth Vader, but I might work out what it is. Hans Gruber from Die Hard. I think it's maybe Scar from The Lion King. Robert Patrick from Terminator 2. The T-1000.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Schwarzenegger from Terminator 1.
Any Shakespearean villains?
Iago. Absolutely. That's a pretty awesome group of people.
I think you've given the Avengers and at least better lines, I would guess.
Piggybacking off his earlier question, what was that wonderful toy you were playing with in the trailer? We saw like at least 4 shots of it.
It's a kind of evolution of the staff that he played with at the end of Thor, but that's Odin's spear. So at the end of Thor, it's Odin's spear. This is his own makeshift staff of destruction.
Will Odin be?
Odin won't be in the Avengers.
Speaking about the trailer, there's a lot of shots of things exploding. We all know that. And it looks a lot like New York. And I was just wondering about, does Loki come to destroy New York, or what's the scope of this film? Is it kind of a global? I mean, there's 8 people contending against you. What's going on? Is it just one city, or?
Well, no, it's not just one city, but inevitably Manhattan becomes a focus point. Partly because that's where Tony Stark lives, and there's one shot in the trailer where you can see, I think, the Quinjet flying towards Manhattan, and in the middle of it is Stark Tower, which is in the fictitious world of the comics. Tony Stark has a huge, interestingly shaped tower opposite the Chrysler Building, which is his base of operations. That's where Stark Industries works out of, and so Stark Tower becomes a focus point for lots of reasons.
I'm sure you've been asked this a million times since the first film, but we haven't met before then. But how immersed in Marvel mythology were you before Loki?
I had this crazy. In England, we have this game called Top Trumps, and it's a really simple game for kids where you have them for like racing cars or fighter planes or something. And I had the Marvel superhero Top Trumps, and you literally just each superhero is on each card with all of their vital statistics. And we'd split the deck, and then you'd have Thor or whatever, and I'd have Loki, and you'd say height 7'2".